there was the sound of an explosion in the deep recesses of the cave, and in the far distance there was a blinding white light slashing through the darkness, followed by the shrieking of silver butterflies. The two both looked up, their faces changed. Shilin loosened his grip on Hua Cheng's sleeves. He said, "Let's talk later." Thus the two continued forward. Only this time there was the added action of tightly holding onto the other's hand. Shilin's face was still hot, and he spoke with forced calm like nothing was the matter. "Sunlang, how did you discover that those two, Fengxin and Muqing, were impostors? Where are the real ones?" Hua Cheng was in pretty much the same state as him and replied, "I left 2 wraith butterflies to monitor those 2 useless trash, so how could they suddenly be 2 more? Don't worry, Your Highness, they're fine, they won't die." "Then we have to go release Fengxin and Muqing from the cocoons first," Shilin said. "Otherwise, it'd be bad if he finds them, and they have no power to fight back." Hua Cheng answered, "This way, follow me." This cave of 10,000 gods was indeed his territory, and even when they came across over 5 to 6 different forks in the road, he could immediately and accurately determine which path to take. It didn't take long before they returned to where they first parted. Even at a distance, they could hear those other 2 were pointing fingers at each other and yelling. "Why did you tell His Highness to run? Now you've done it. He's been carried away." "What, and have him stand around to be butchered? Huh? You just want him to distract Hua Cheng and have him led away. Am I wrong?" Shilin didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. The 2 giant white cocoons on the wall were both simultaneously gnawing at the silk and yelling at each other, and when they saw him return, they were so surprised that they even forgot to spit out the white silk from their mouths. "How did you escape?" Shilin's bamboo hat was still on the ground where he dropped it, and he quickly picked it up and tied it around his back. The heavy white silk released those 2, retreating back into the shadows, and Fengxin and Muqing, who were both beaten black and blue, tumbled to the ground. When they saw Hua Cheng emerge from behind Shilin, they probably thought that they were about to go through another beating, that things were going to get rough again, and their faces twitched. Fengxin was just grabbing for Shilin's arm to pull him back, but Shilin grabbed hold of Hua Cheng first. "Your Highness?" Fengxin was shocked. Hua Cheng was already starting to lead the way. Go, this way." As if those 2 dared to follow him. Fengxin questioned, "Your Highness, why are you still with him?" Muqing then said, "Didn't I say he's lost his mind? Completely infatuated." Shilin didn't fight them, and only gently, but very firmly, held on to Hua Cheng. "There's no time to explain now. In any case, let's get out of here first. There's an enemy chasing us from behind." Having been held on to like this, Hua Cheng's eyes were twinkling, and a moment later he smiled. "I suggest you both hold your tongue and just follow. I'm in a good mood, so I won't fight you for now." Seeing this, the 2 wore complicated expressions and were in complete disbelief. In their thinking, they just couldn't figure out why Shilin could still so nonchalantly walk alongside such a terrifying bastard ghost who had stalked him for over 800 years with a mind full of unspeakable things. This was practically like playing with fire and getting burned. Muqing was suspicious, but in the end, finally chose to talk about the other point and asked, "You said there's an enemy? This cave of 10,000 gods is his territory, so what kind of enemy could there possibly be? Was that scratch on his face also inflicted by the enemy? I don't think that there are that many in the world who can hurt Crimson Rain, Sword Flower." "It's white, no face," Xilin replied. Hearing this name, Feng Xin and Mu Qing's faces both changed too, and immediately, without another word, they followed after Xilin. They were both more than clear that Xilin could joke and lie about anything except this one person. Xilin would never lie about him, and he would never mistake him either. This group were just fighting each other to the death in the cave of 10,000 gods earlier, and now they were all fleeing together. Just what is going on? Mu Qing demanded. Xilin thus gave him an account of that white-clad man who had transformed into their appearances, and they were both stunned. Disguised as us? How is that possible? It's true, Xilin said, even though everything happened so quickly and I didn't look closely, but at a glance, it was absolutely you two. Feng Xin was dumbfounded. But how can White No Face still exist in this world? Wasn't he killed by the Emperor? It's easy to imagine that that creature isn't so easily killed, Mu Qing said. Maybe it was killed at the time, but with the right chance, it can certainly revive itself. Xilin recalled something and turned to Hua Cheng. Sanlang, before, just after we entered Mount Tonglu, you suddenly woke up from your hibernating state and urged us to immediately hide away from something. What you sensed back then, was it him? Hua Cheng nodded lightly. It was him. Xilin mumbled, I knew it. We later chose the path to the west, but the one who killed thousands of monsters and demons from the east was him. He's reborn, but still a little weak, and needed to kill the monsters and demons who entered Mount Tonglu to use them as his stepping stone. And now he's recovered and possibly even stronger than before. After all, he was the world's first supreme ghost king. Just as they were talking, Mu Qing noticed something wrong. Your Highness, do you know where he's taking us? I don't think that this is the way out. However, it was Hua Cheng who replied, Of course this isn't the way out, because there's no way out right now. Feng Xin was shocked. What? Isn't this cave your territory? You can't also be lost? Of course not, Xilin replied. Hua Cheng answered, Because White No Face is blocking the path leading to the exit of this cave. If you think you can defeat him in your current state, then by all means don't follow after me, and I won't stop you. Please, go ahead. Feng Xin and Mu Qing were both from Shenle after all. Unlike Xilin, they had an indistinguishable shadow toward that creature in their hearts. Unless absolutely necessary, they absolutely did not want to face him. Feng Xin gazed upward. Can we punch through the top of the cave directly and get out? Hua Cheng mocked. It's the snowy mountain outside. Do you want to start another avalanche? Too bad. They had left the Earthmaster shovel to Yin Yu for emergencies, and they didn't have it on hand. Even if they did, none of them studied on how to use it, so they couldn't soundlessly dig themselves out. Then what are we running around aimlessly for? As long as we run around aimlessly, he will chase after us, and therefore leave the path leading to the exit, Xilin explained. By then, the rest of you can use that chance to escape. Mu Qing was sharp and said, Wait, the rest of you? You mean to split? One group is the bait to lead him away, while the other group escapes by themselves? That's it, exactly, Xilin said. The Emperor must be informed that White No Face has reappeared in the world. Once you both get out, find a way to bring this news to the heavens. Mu Qing cut him off. Wait, you've already decided who's going to be the bait and who's going to leave? Xilin shook his head. I didn't decide this. White No Face did. Mu Qing understood and didn't speak anymore. It really wasn't up to them to decide who gets pursued. If they must choose the one amongst them that White No Face would be the most interested in pursuing, then it was for sure Shilian. Fengxin declared without hesitation, "I will stay with you to face him." In the past, if there was any incident, Muqing would always be the one Shilian sent back to report, while Fengxin would always be the one staying behind to assist him. Now, it seemed the circumstances were going to repeat themselves. However, Shilian glanced at Huacheng and said, "Thanks, but there's no need. Sanlang will stay with me." Fengxin blurted out, "How can he be the one to stay? He—" Huacheng's brows furrowed threateningly, but Shilian replied, "He's fine. I trust him." His voice was gentle, but his demeanor was exceedingly determined, and Fengxin was stunned in spite of himself. "Your Highness." Shilian patted his shoulder. "You two go together. Mount Tonglu has now closed its gates, so it's difficult to say if you can even charge out. Besides, don't you still need to search for Lan Chang and the child?" With his reminder, Fengxin's face grew ashen. A wraith butterfly flew out from the engravings on the vambrace around Huacheng's wrist, and Huacheng said, "Follow it." The two looked at Huacheng and then at Shilian, and in the end, Muqing tossed out, "You two watch yourselves." Then he turned around to follow after that silver butterfly, dashing into another tunnel. A brief moment later, Fengxin also followed. The four thus parted at this fork in the road, and just as Shilian was watching their retreating backs, in the distance came another series of exploding rumbles. The remaining two exchanged a look. Huacheng said darkly, "He's here." "Take me away," Shilian said. That white-clad man came charging after Shilian as expected. Huacheng continued to set up wraith butterfly arrays to form obstacles in order to ensure that the white-clad man would always be kept at a distance from them, while at the same time monitor the situation in various paths. Every time there was an explosion and the wraith butterfly shrieked, however, his expression would grow grimmer, and Shilian also ached as he listened. They winded and turned, rounding corner after corner, and came to a cavern chamber. He couldn't help but sigh. "I can't believe this many silver butterflies are lost." While those wraith butterflies didn't have a good reputation in the other realms, in Shilian's eyes, they were nothing less than clever and precious little spirits. To so vigorously commit suicidal attacks without stopping, if only to delay the steps of the enemy for one moment, Shilian couldn't help but ache for them. Huacheng, however, only snorted, appearing as if his eyes could see through the thick rocky walls. He said darkly, "Don't worry. If he kills one, I'll make 10 more. Fast and furious like the storms. I will never back down. Let's see who's the one left standing in the end." Shilian's heart skipped a beat for some reason, and he mumbled inwardly, "Oh no, this is bad." Even though Huacheng's expression was subconsciously displayed, Shilian was really quite weak to this aggressive and rebellious confidence of his. After another moment, Huacheng slowed his pace and appeared as if he received some sort of signal. He turned to Shilian. "He's been led away. Those two are almost out." "Great," Shilian said. "Now we can take our time to think of a way." "There's no rush now," Huacheng said. "He's been left behind, a long distance away, so we can hide here for now and think of a battle plan." Yet, unexpectedly, the mood between the two of them suddenly became a little awkward. It wasn't the kind of awkwardness that came with embarrassment, but just a bit of unknown shyness. At first, they were being chased closely by that creature behind them, and Fengxin and Muqing were both present at the time, so this feeling wasn't obvious. Although he did say, "Let's talk later," Now that they'd caught their breaths, and it was already later, he had no idea what to say. Shilin coughed lightly twice to clear his throat, raising a finger to scratch at his cheek, but felt no matter what, things were a little uncomfortable. He wanted to speak, but then worried that it would sound too abrupt or too silly or overly intentional, and in the end, he hoped Hua Cheng would be the first to say something. However, Hua Cheng's expression was also strained, appearing like he was thinking very seriously over their battle plans. But whether he was actually thinking was hard to tell, because the hands clenched behind his back seemed to be slightly shaking. Just then, the two walked past a divine statue. Most of the divine statues within the cave of 10,000 gods were all about the same size as the real person himself. However, this one was more rough in craftsmanship, and its size was also shrunken by half. When Shilin passed it, he casually peeled off the veil that was covering its head, and his eyes lit up. "Sanlam, did you carve this one too?" Hua Cheng looked over and fell silent. It was a moment before he replied. "It's work from beginner years. Goga, don't look anymore." That must absolutely be the truth, since this divine statue really was extremely ugly. Even though it was easy to see that the sculptor had done his utmost to carve that perfect form in his heart, the skill was limited, his wish unfulfilled. While it couldn't be said to be cock-eyed or crooked, it could still be said that this little figure was disproportionate and smiled like it was mentally challenged. Still, despite all that, he still managed to complete every single detail without fault. Thus, Shilin could still tell that this was a God-pleasing crown prince statue. Even that pair of red coral pearl earrings were dotted. Shilin silently covered his mouth and turned away. In order to appear natural, he even rubbed hard at his face. Hua Cheng didn't know what to say, and so he pleaded again. "Your Highness, please don't look anymore," he said, as he tried to cover that statue again with a veil. Shilin quickly said, "Don't misunderstand. I really think it's very cute." But then he thought, wasn't the one Hua Cheng sculpted him? To praise that this thing was cute, wasn't it just him praising himself as cute? Not only was he lying with his eyes wide open, it was also incredibly thick-skinned. So Shilin couldn't help but laugh out loud. Seeing this, Hua Cheng also bowed his head and lowered his lashes as he started to chuckle too. Thus, with the both of them laughing, much of that unknown, anxiously stiff mood was washed away. They continued forward and passed another statue that was lounging, lying on a stone bed. But its entire body was covered with a layer of smoke-light white satin. Shilin was very curious and was just about to uncover the white veil on that divine statue's body when Hua Cheng seized his wrist all of a sudden. "Your Highness." Ever since they entered this cave of 10,000 gods, Hua Cheng called him Your Highness a majority of the time. Shilin looked at him, and Hua Cheng let go of the hand that was gripping him, looking like he was still a little uncomfortable. "I already know it's a statue of me. Can I still not look?" Shilin asked. "If Gogo wants to look at statues, the best one I've sculpted still remains to be seen. I'll show you some other time. Don't look at any of the ones in this cave anymore," Hua Cheng said. Shilin didn't understand. "Why? I think all the divine statues in this cave of 10,000 gods are all carved really well. Really, really well. I'll think it's a shame if I can't see them. Speaking of those murals." Yet unexpectedly, Hua Cheng instantly said, "I'll go destroy them." Seeing that he was actually about to move, Shilin hastily grabbed him. Don't. Why destroy them? Just because I saw? Fine, fine, fine. I'll tell you the truth. I've only actually seen a little bit, like the Shangyuan Heavenly Ceremonial Procession, the army, and the like. I haven't seen most of them because Fengxin and Muqing wouldn't let me. So I have absolutely no idea what you painted. Don't go and destroy them. Only then did Huacheng turn around to face him. Really? Shilin held on to him and replied with the utmost sincerity. Really, if you don't want me to look, then I won't. Huacheng seemed to have quietly sighed in relief and smiled. It's not anything good to look at anyway. If you want to see anything, just have me paint it directly. A reaction like this, Shilin was not even more curious, but he didn't want to drive Huacheng to destroy those precious murals himself either, so he could only force down his own desires. After taking a few steps, Shilin suddenly frowned. Something's not right.